The Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Real Doctor Who fans with real Doctor Who opinions.
Hello and welcome to the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast, episode number 294 of the podcast. I am Brett, and this is a solo edition of the podcast. Yes, as stated in previous episodes, our goal is to give you one episode per week. And so, because of scheduling conflicts and other traveling snafus that kind of occurred across the pond, you have me on this podcast. If you are dreading this, well, just please check out our back catalog and listen to that. If you do like this, I would love to hear from you. Please email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. You can tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. You could also DM. I teased a possible fake Liam Twitter handle, and I opened it up. And then I had immediate regrets about the whole thing because I'm probably on some sort of government list because of the Twitter handle. So I changed it. Right now, I can't remember what it is, but it is no longer DuckBomb89 because it went from funny to I get slightly paranoid from time to time, but that's just a me problem. Anyway. This podcast, I initially had a master plan of what I was going to do. I pre-recorded clips. I kind of mapped out what I wanted to do. It was going to be silly all over the place, but fun and also informative from time to time. However, while I was on a walk the other day, I had an idea because of a conversation that myself and Legion have been having regarding the future of the podcast, and I thought, this would be fun. And that conversation, it basically goes as follows. We're looking into doing, YouTube streams. If anybody wants to watch it, who knows? I will tell you, they'd probably be very wart heavy because, the actual recorded podcast sounds nowhere near the actual post-produced podcast. So just FYI, I think what the goal would possibly be for a little while until we got our feet underground is to record everything, not post it immediately on YouTube, post the cleaned up version of the podcast, and then maybe a week or so or around the same time, give you the warts and all version of the live stream that we recorded. So that's kind of what we're looking at doing for the near future. So stay tuned for that. But because of that discussion, I decided it would be a hoot if we decided, or if we did, or I did actually, let's take that back because it's not a we, it's a me. If I just did a faux live stream reaction to a post-show watching episode of Doctor Who. And so here's what I have typed in ChatGPT. Yes, good old ChatGPT. I said, create a list of 20 YouTube chat names with statements and questions that would be done during a live stream discussion and reacting to the Doctor Who story, Love and Monsters. Yes, what started off as a complete joke has now endeared myself to kind of the story. Is it a great story? No. Do I love it with all my heart? Absolutely not. Do I think that I kind of comically like it? Yes, I do. Comically as in funny? No. Comically as in it's so bad I think it's funny. Also because I have a fake trailer that I created that I'll probably, if memory serves me, if my memory does work correctly, I will insert at the very end of this episode. I probably should clean it up and probably just kind of put it cleaned up somewhere as a episode all onto its own so that it can be listened to on repeat for hopefully a long time. So yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I also have in the queue of ChatGPT a secondary thing that I'm looking forward to doing too. I'll get to that in a second. But so right now, I am going to hit enter on the ChatGPT, and I hope to be thoroughly intrigued and just enjoy the process of faux live streaming a post Doctor Who episode on YouTube. And so let me just kind of get my live streamer hat on and okay. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. All right, well, that was Doctor Who Love and Monsters, and wow, that was an episode. I'm not sure exactly what to think about it, so let's just discuss this, and I'd love to hear your questions, and I will react to your questions as they come in, and also maybe, critique this or whatever. I think let's just have fun with this. I will say going forward, I'm not sure exactly what time of era this is. Is this in series 2, reacting to it live as of that time? Or is this rewatching Love and Monsters and reacting to this years later? I don't know. Only ChatGPT with this queue of questions will let me know, hopefully, eventually. So, starting us off, for $2.99, Whovian Wanderer says, this episode had such a unique perspective on the Doctor Who universe. So, that's kind of an interesting question, Who Wanderer, because I think what I really appreciate about this is in most Doctor Who episodes, especially from the Third Doctor, and I do love the Third Doctor. I have that Third Doctor era's back. I know a lot of people can criticize the over-unitization of the Third Doctor era. However, I will say that one thing that I like about this episode connects to the whole unity of the Third Doctor era, and that is the constant alien invasion, monster attack, mad scientist type thing, the dinosaurs invading, a whole bunch of things that were occurring in London, in England, on a weekly or daily basis. I mean, the mad thing about it is, after it happens for a while and you realize it's only happening here, it's time to, honey, get the change of address forms. Let's go. It would also be like similarly to like Godzilla, where, it'd be like, oh, hey, sweetie, look at that. Godzilla's running amok down Tokyo. Yeah, I think we should move, don't you? And so it's kind of an interesting situation where some of these invasions, some of these aliens are being remembered and people are collecting and forming a group, because you would think if it was a constant, alien invasion, monster attack type of a situation, people like this would be constantly in the news, unless it was like, what was that? A couple of years ago, there was an earthquake in Japan, and I was watching some people react to it on YouTube because, they pulled out their camera phones and started recording. And what I found really interesting about that is as the earthquake was happening, people just kind of stopped what they did, pulled out their phones, and just recorded the whole thing. It just, earthquakes in Japan are just a thing that they are used to. So I guess it would say maybe the main reason why a lot of people just kind of don't care about it or have become blind to the whole situation is because it's just like, oh, dinosaur invasion? Yeah, we had like those space vampires a little while ago. Those were the scary ones. So, I mean, yeah. You've seen a space vampire like up front. That's scary. But you know what? A brontosaurus? Whatever. I saw a brontosaurus on Jurassic Park. It was better. But anyway, in the movie theater, because Doctor Who's real life, right? So yeah, that's what I think about that. For $4.99. TARDIS Travel 87 says, I loved how they explored the impact of the Doctor on ordinary people's lives. So kind of similarly to what Whovian Wanderer said previously, yes, I do like that we kind of see the impact that the Doctor has on people's lives. Not only are these alien invasions constantly occurring, but now we kind of get the, some of the human aspect of the whole thing. But the interesting thing is more or less it's, the interesting thing is if you were to, and I'm not sure what era I'm actually commenting on. Is this 2007 or is this 2023? I don't know. Well, hopefully the YouTube commenters will let me know. But if this is 2023, I think, I don't know what to think. All right. Anyway, yeah. For Rose and 10 forever. Oh, ChatGPT. You nailed a probably common YouTube, Twitter, or whatever, Twitter handle, YouTube handle, Rose and 10 forever. Oh my gosh. Bravo. You are near sentient. Congratulations. All right. Rose and 10 forever says, the scene with the doctor and Rose at the end was emotional. Rose and 10 forever. I think you're just a massive Rose and 10 fan. I don't recall an emotional scene between the Rose and the doctor at the end of this, but I did not previously just watch Love and Monsters. Again, I prefer this story over many of the train wrecks from New Who and a couple of them from Old Who, but this isn't like my go-to story. So I think Rose and 10 forever, you were watching that with Rose and 10 tinted glasses. And yeah. Let's see. Torchwood Wanderer says, I can't believe they brought back the Slovene in this episode. What? Did Torchwood Wanderer? Did we watch the same episode? Did they bring back the Slovene? I don't think they did. I know it's the Absorbalov, but did the Slovene? Sure, why not? A follow-up question by Torchwood Wanderer: should we see more of these lesser-known aliens in future episodes? That's an interesting thing, and I think that is so. For example, if we are in 2023, I've done a couple of YouTube videos on Spider-Boy, and it's an intriguing situation because you have all these brand new spider creatures that they're constantly, Spider-Man T-Rex, Spider-Man car, like it's just over the top. And I'm not sure I'm actually up for that. Spider-Boy was a situation that I feel as though was the best Dreamcast created scenario. And then they just decided to kind of have a Spider-Man series leading up to the Spider-Boy, a possible, sidekick to Spider-Man. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if they did create a villain that would have not the lasting power of the Daleks, but at least a villain as interesting as the Daleks, Cybermen, the Master, even the Centaurans. But I think what actually has to happen is I think massive, and I am a research nerd. I think like focus groups are going to have to be created. I think they need to figure out what they have. And when I say focus groups, I feel as though you could say that they might have focus groups now. I feel as though the focus groups are a bunch of yes people. Because when things come out, like things just tend to not be popular. And so I think they need to covertly do focus groups, maybe even not even connect it to Doctor Who's IP in general, and kind of have a blind taste test, as you will, for future alien monsters and have these things reappear. Because, was it whatever Shaw or whatever, Mark Shaw or whatever? I don't think that was really well thought out. A creature that, is an assassin that also, removes teeth and then shoves them in his face. I don't, no, that was not, the Pating. I think, the funny thing would be I would love for the Pating to have come out post Mandalorian and people accusing Doctor Who of trying to, baby Yoda the whole thing. I think that would be hysterical because there'd be so no, there's no possible way that would have happened. It didn't happen. I know that, but I think it would be hysterically funny because it would be funny. But I think what they need to do is they need to create an alien that has lasting power. Again, one of the things that I've constantly said is we need to be able to, the Doctor needs to defeat these aliens, not by killing them or like murdering a whole bunch of them like the 13th Doctor, but, defeat them. And like, what is it? What is it? The sand creature from the 12th Doctor. I really like that. I love the lost, I might be in the minority. I like the lost or the found footage type of a storytelling. It has to be good. Not like, what is it? Never mind. I was going to go on a rant about something, but let's just focus on this. I think that has lasting power. But again, I think the episode did not have the intrigue or the love that they initially expected. And so there's a lost story somewhere in between there. And unless it, comes out in audio, it's never going to get resolved. So I think I think it's a tricky place to be. And this is not only with BBC's Doctor Who, but also with Big Finish too. Because again, one of the most recent things that occurred was Big Finish created a villain for, not Torchwood, for Unit, the Volprene. 4 box sets, haven't listened to a single one of them, but I feel as though maybe they have lasting power. I don't know, but I don't know how it ended also. So it would be kind of interesting to see, and I think that's where fan discussion boards really come to play. I think you legitimately need to find a good fan discussion board that actually takes the pulse of what fandom wants. Not what you want, not what your writers want, but what the fans want. So I think that, that's where I'm going to leave off with that Torchwood Wanderer. Sarah Jane Fanatic says the Sarah Jane cameo was a brilliant touch. Okay. I don't remember Sarah. I think you and Rose and 10 Forever really like certain characters, and I think you supplant them in your memory as because you like them. I can't recall Sarah Jane's cameo in Love and Monsters. So, yeah. All right, moving on. For $7.99, Who Locked In says the humor in this episode was on point, especially with Ursula. So for me, Ursula was a massive distraction because I heard the voice and I'm sitting there thinking, I know you. And when I do that, my initial instinct is I want my brain to come up with the answer. I don't want to have to go to IMDb. But I was just like, I know you. I know you. You sound very similar but different. Who are you? You look older. Why do you look older? What's going on? And so I'm constantly thinking about this. And then I finally gave up and IMDb'd it and found that Ursula was Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter. And I found that as a distraction point. And so, was it a bad portrayal? No. Was the humor on point in this episode? The humor in this episode to me was worse than dad jokes, in all honesty. And I know somewhere as I'm saying this, and then a little while later, as he's listening to this podcast, Legion has just felt like a dagger into his heart. Ugh. Comparing it to dad jokes. Anyway, I didn't say compare it to puns. However, puns are the lowest form of comedy. I saw that on an episode of something. I can't remember where, but yeah. Who was your favorite, follow-up from Who Locked In, who was your favorite member of Linda? I like just the existence of Linda. I have no idea, again, what point in time I'm supposed to be reacting to this. Am I supposed to be reacting to this as somebody who just barely got through watching it for the first time in 2007-ish? Or am I reacting to this as a recent rewatch in 2023? I don't know. Let's just pretend that okay. I'm just going to go with This is 2007, and I was bitten by a radioactive Doctor Who fan, and I can see into the future. Who was my favorite member of Linda? Linda, because I feel having my, radioactive Doctor Who senses are tingling. I believe in the future, somebody is going to create a fake Linda box set trailer that is going to be enjoyable for everybody who listens to it. And so just knowing that that could possibly be a thing, I think the entirety of Linda, because we all need a London invasion. London investigation detective agency. We all need one of those. And that needs to be a thing going forward. Let's see, timey-wimey theorist. Liam's account. This episode raised some interesting questions about the Doctor's impact. Yeah, so again, previously mentioned, we talked about the Doctor's impact and also the constant invasion of what's going on between, weekly, daily, whatever, hourly invasions that happen to occur in London. Dalek Defender 42 says the Absorbaloff design was so creepy, but in a good way. If you mean shiny plastic guy, shiny plastic overweight guy with a weird mohawk and creatures that are begging for their lives coming out of his body, and then one of them kind of like talking, and then I think he sits on one and muffles their voice or something. I think that's a thing. If that's what you call creepy, I mean, here's what I'll say. So, as a school teacher, sometimes you will be presented with something that looks disastrous. And there is, and maybe you've heard this compliment before, maybe you haven't. If you have heard this before, think back to the last time you heard this compliment and reflect on what you did. So, as a school teacher, sometimes I will be presented with a piece of art, and I have no idea what to think about that piece of art. But a kid has designed it, they have shown me, and they have asked me, what do you think? And so I don't know how to say that is good, because it is generally the opposite of something that I enjoy looking at. However, I do not want to hurt this kid's feelings. So what I will say is, that's an interesting picture. Because, and if you think back to when people tell you that something is interesting for like a idea or a picture or whatever, and when you hear the word, that is interesting, that is kind of teacher speak for this is garbage, but I can't say anything that will hurt your feelings. So keep that in mind, because the Absorbaloff's design was creepy. Sure, why not? That's interesting that you find that the Absorbaloff creepy. But follow-up question by Dalek Defender 42. Would you have preferred a different monster for this episode? Yes. And if you're curious about which one, any other one besides the Absorbaloff. Like, I will say, I would prefer like a faux magical person who was just kind of an evil, like absorber of life. He could, be like, Snidely Whiplash, fake magician type of a thing, and just be able to absorb and suck people's life essence. I think I would rather prefer a more humaner form than this, and an evil person per se, than this weird Absorbaloff, who I think, if memory serves me right, died by being like flushed down the drain. And I don't mean flushed like in the toilet, but like I think they get sucked down the drain, or turns into a puddle on a slab of concrete, because yes. So Whovian Art Gallifrey says the fan art potential for the Absorbaloff is endless. To that Whovian Art Gallifrey, I say that is a very interesting statement that you have. Let's see, have you seen any great fan creations inspired by this episode? No, but they would all be interesting. I will tell you that. Any Absorbaloff fan-inspired art would be very interesting. I would be very interested in reviewing those. Yes. For $4.99, Time Travel Geek says, I wish we could have seen more of Elton's adventures with Linda. I hope that in the near future, again, I have been bitten by a radioactive Doctor Who fan, so there is a fake Linda box set trailer. I would love for an actual Linda box set trailer. Again, what could happen is Elton would be like solving crimes, maybe alien invasions, maybe fake alien invasions. He would have like in a wheelbarrow, obviously Ursula, and they would go around solving crimes together. You know, they obviously from time to time they need some jackhammering. But then as they kind of get closer to the alien invader or the evil scientist or whatever, Elton could pick up this slab of concrete and throw it at the said alien or mad scientist. And then Elton could come over and pull off the mad scientist's mask and revealing that it'd be Old Man Johnson. And, he would have said something like, I would have gotten away with it too, if it hadn't been for you kids. Follow-up question by Time Traveler Geek is, what other characters from this era would you like to see a spin-off series about? Again, having been bitten by a radioactive Doctor Who fan, I feel as though there will be a couple of at least audio spin-offs from some of these people. And there is a thief that I sense exists that isn't interesting, but we'll see some spin-off series. And nobody will really be clamoring for that one. There will be a New Earth spin-off series that will basically rob people of their money. And that's like the whole premise of the entirety of the box set is separating Doctor Who fans from their hard-earned money. There's going to be nothing interesting that happens, but you will have less money in your bank account afterwards. So, I mean, that's a very sinister spin-off series right there because that is just pure evil. I would like to have a doctor's daughter, again, having been bitten by a radioactive Doctor Who fan, I believe that the Doctor is going to have a daughter, and there's going to be multiple box sets, and then people are going to be clamoring for the more box sets because it's an interesting character, and nothing's going to happen for a long, long time, and everybody who complains about it will be told that, shut up because she's raising her family, to which point I will say, because I have the ability to understand certain things because I have been bitten by a radioactive Doctor Who fan, is that I can say scripts are created, babysitters can be hired for 2 days, and audio stories can be completed. That's all I'll say about that. Dr. Sonic Screwdriver Enthusiast. Why did my brain just went to like a vibrator for some reason. I don't know. I think you should change your YouTube handle, dude. Anyway, how did Elton manage to keep his cool meeting the Doctor? That's an interesting question because he has Sonic Screwdriver Enthusiast. I hate that name. It just the mind wanders so much. Follow-up question says, would you have been as calm in that situation? So I have seen a local celebrity, not somebody that, if I said on the podcast, anybody would know, but it's, somebody who our immediate state and some of the states around us, meant a big deal to. And for me, I remember running into this person while walking out of a grocery store as they were walking in. And I got so flustered in recognizing them, worried that I was staring for too long, and then trying to look normal. I didn't know what I was doing or how or where I parked my car. So I can understand Elton's, situation where he would be kind of nervous in meeting the Doctor. So that's as close as I can come to that. Let's see. So Gallifrey Gossip says, for $4.99, let's talk about soundtrack. Murray Gold did it again. Well, to quote co-host Legion, Murray Gold delivered 24 carats. Yeah, that's right. Whovian Debate says, some fans have mixed feelings about this episode. What are your thoughts? Ooh, so now we're creeping into I think this could be a reaction in 2023, not okay. So now I need to kind of like think. I haven't been bitten by a radioactive Doctor Who fan. That was just a horrible dream, or that was a nightmare of something that happened. So I guess we're in 2023. Okay, so some fans have some mixed feelings about this episode. What are your thoughts? I initially hated this episode upon first visit. And I remember watching it. I was renting this from the library, the box set. And I remember the instant it got to the next time on Doctor Who was Fear Her. And I was just like, oh, I just barely watched a bad episode. That doesn't look good. And I skipped it. And so I went to the next episode. I can't remember what the next episode was. I had not watched Fear Her for probably about 4 years. Then 4 years later, I'm like, okay, let's revisit everything. So I started rewatching the whole series. And then I decided, all right, let's watch Fear Her. So I watched Love and Monsters, and then I watched Fear Her. And you know what? I was right. Fear Her, I think, is probably one of the worst modern Who episodes ever created. And I feel as like, what is it? Eaters of Light is bad. Listen is also bad. My personal opinion is I think Vincent and the Doctor is horrible. I know I am the minority, but I just don't like the story. And there's a couple In the Forest of the Night. I think that's a bad story too. So, Love and Monsters is not as bad as some of other stories. Power of Three. That's a bad one. Let's see. What would you have changed or improved in Love and Monsters? Well, that's a doozy of a question. I think because I kind of like the whole vlog style situation that they do. I mean, it's nowhere near the found footage. In fact, I think that would be fun. I think a vlog found footage type of thing, like where Elliot actually also gets devoured, or actually, maybe dies to some extent, or maybe he himself, as a reaction, kind of gets transformed into an Absorbaloff or something like that. Like, its last like breath of desperation to pass on its genetic code nails him, and he morphs into the Absorbaloff 2.0. I think that would have been good. And then, of course, going back to a previous comment, is you could revisit going after Elliot. Now, and I did mention, and this kind of did distract me, because Elliot also is a character from this show that AMC and I think Channel 4 did, called, I think it's Hustle. I think it's, I think it's Hustle. And the actor who played him is kind of a main character in Hustle for about 3 or 4 seasons. And then he goes away and does his own thing, because maybe I don't know if he gets, anyway, I don't know. But I just found that a distraction too. So you have Moaning Myrtle, who's a distraction for me personally. And then you also have that guy, Elliot, as, to me, kind of a distraction. I would actually prefer, here's what I would actually prefer. And I don't know how people in the UK do it, but I feel as though when I watch a TV show, like, what is it, with Star Trek Picard, like, I know all those people from The Next Generation, so they're not a distraction. If they were to like come out of nowhere and suddenly Samuel L. Jackson was there, that would distract me, because my brain would be like, oh, look at that. Did he survive from Jurassic Park? Or, ooh, look at that. Is that what's his face from Marvel? Like, that would be just a massive, or what's his face from Star Wars. I think that would be a massive distraction. So I would prefer, BBC or Doctor Who or whatever, just use good, well-known, like Royal Shakespeare Company actors. They're good enough to act, but they're not like widely well-known where they kind of detract from the story. That's what I would also like going forward. But that's just a me problem. Let's see. Regeneration Reacts says, I always enjoy these Doctor's Light episodes for their fresh perspective. Yeah, I mean, I think the best Dr. Light episode is Blink. And the next one is, I think for me personally, would be Flatline. I think those are the best Dr. Light episodes. And this one, ooh. Never mind. You can only dump on Fear Her so much before it just becomes mean. Oh, no, you can't. It's never mean. Let's see. Time Vortex series says the Doctor's compassion shines through even in this unusual episode. Sure. And finally, Doctor Who 2023. So now we are confirmed. Either this person is hopeful for 2023 or we are currently in 2023 and this person just changes their Twitter, or their Facebook, YouTube. There we go. Thank you, Brain. YouTube handle every year. Says, looking forward to more live streams and discussing this. Okay, so this is definitely, so we are now in modern time. So thank you. Last comment on ChatGPT's, faux YouTube live stream. So yes, I'm curious what this is going to look like. And he has a further question that says, what stories would you like to react to in the future? So that's an interesting question. So I chose this again because of my unhealthy love and also odd fascination with this story. However, in saying that, if I were to do a further one, I would either choose to do the Partners in Crime because I believe that is the best New Who story of all of them. I love Partners in Crime. And yeah, nobody could change my mind. You can talk to me till you're blue in the face until the cows come home, or till your blue cows come home. Either way, I think that is the Partners in Crime best New Who. I also would like to do, again, because this is my favorite Christmas episode of all time, I would like to do Voyage of the Damned. I think that would be a great live stream discussion reaction. Because again, I think it has all the things that you want. I know some people, the companion, even I have still Kylie something. I don't know. It could be a distraction for the UK people. Does not distract me. I have no idea who you are, lady. Congratulations, you're famous. So I would like to do that. I also would like to do, and I know Liam would be like totally opposed to doing it, but I also would like to do a commentary reaction discussing Kerblam. I think that is I think because of all the stuff that we've gone through with the 13th Doctor, I think that is possibly the most interesting thing, because to me, that is the best 13th Doctor episode that is created. So I think that would be kind of fun to do a reaction and discuss and actually figure out if, is it as good as I remember? Because I have watched it a couple times. I haven't watched it in probably about like 3-ish years, but I haven't watched it a couple times, and I did enjoy it. All right, now for the next thing. So I have put in ChatGPT create a list of 20 Ask Me Anythings that a podcasting audience would ask on a live Doctor Who Alhambra podcast stream that focuses on Doctor Who TV show, as well as the 3 hosts, Liam, Legion, and Brett. So I hit enter, and let's see what we have. So it starts us off as, what inspired you to start the Doctor Who Alhambra podcast? How did you choose Doctor Who as your main focus? So that's an interesting question. So it was, 2016, Me and Liam, about 2000 or 2012, I think tail end of 2012, we talked about starting up a podcast. I'm not sure if we talked about it before my trip to England or after, but we talked about it for a while. It took us probably about almost a year because I am a nerd. I also need to figure out how things work, and I need to make sure that they work for me. So I think it took us a while. We also listened to a whole bunch of, I know I did. I listened to a whole bunch of other Doctor Who podcasts because I wanted to see what I liked about them and what I didn't like about them, and kind of steal, but also kind of morph and create into our own. And I will tell you, I personally think that we do have the best Doctor Who podcast out there. That is my opinion. I could be proven wrong, but I think that yeah. Then the second question is, what is, never mind. I'm going to skip that one because that one's blah. It says, can you share your favorite Doctor Who episode or story arc that makes it special to you? So my favorite Doctor Who episode is the Invasion of the Dinosaurs because it was the first Doctor Who story that I recall watching. At the time, my dad was a massive science fiction guy. He would watch, the Flash Gordon movie a lot. He had Buck Rogers on. He would watch Battlestar Galactica. I remember him watching Star Trek, but none of them caught my eye. And when I was walking through and, the third Doctor was taking on the dinosaurs, you tell a 7-year-old kid, this was probably like in the late 80s, 7-year-old kid that you're watching a show featuring dinosaurs, that will just suck them in right there. And so that is how I got into it. So that is like one of my endearing Doctor Who episodes. My favorite arc? Interesting. I'm not sure if I have a favorite arc. No, I don't think so. Who is your favorite incarnation of the Doctor? And why do you connect to that one or that particular incarnation? So that's a really interesting question. So, like I said, first episode that I recall watching is the Invasion of the Dinosaurs. So from that point forward, I sat and I watched Doctor Who with my dad. It was every Saturday at like 5 or something like that, or 4. I can't remember the exact time, but it was on a Saturday, and they would do 2 episodes back to back. And so the first episode, obviously, I remember watching is Invasion of the Dinosaurs. The next one I remember watching was The Green Death, and that was cool. I really liked these disgusting maggots. I thought that was fantastic. I love the toxic green goo that made people's hands pulse green. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Then, of course, I believe the other one was Carnival of Monsters. That because I do remember seeing the hand puppet, whatever it's called. I enjoyed that story too. So the third Doctor was always one that intrigued me. And then I remember, one week I go down and I'm watching Doctor Who with my dad, and it is the fourth Doctor. And I asked my dad, what happened to the white-haired guy? Because that's what I didn't know. His name was the Doctor. What happened to the white-haired guy? And my dad said, oh, well, he died. And so I took that and I'm not sure if my dad meant it as he regenerated and changed. I'm not sure if my dad watched that episode or not, but it's common practice in the United States. If somebody dies, you either recast a new actor in the same spot, or, for example, for MASH, if the actor is getting tired of the role, they leave and then they insert a character that is almost identical to the one that left, because they don't want to cause a wave amongst the continuity of the show. So that's how I just figured that, John Pertwee died and he was replaced by this guy. And I was like, okay, well, it's not obvious. I mean, it's very obvious. I mean, you go from an old guy to a young guy, but whatever. So I really enjoyed those two. And then I do remember watching the regeneration of the Fourth Doctor into the Fifth Doctor. And that made me angry because I didn't understand what was going on. And the Fourth Doctor, both Doctors were special to me. And then they changed, to me, it was almost like they changed both of them into this guy. And that's when I stopped watching it. And that's when I found Star Trek and became a massive Star Trek fan. Let's see. Are there any classic Doctor Who episodes that you feel are underrated and deserve more attention? Interesting. I would say Edge of Destruction is underrated, especially because when you think about where it's placed, you have an unearthly child. I mean, you could also say like the episode 2, 3, and 4 of an unearthly child, but I don't really care about that story. Like, to me, the only story that matters in An Unearthly Child is the first story, An Unearthly Child. The rest of them where they go to caveman times, I think it's just, I don't care. Then, of course, you have the Daleks in the follow-up episode, which, of course, springboarded them into fame and also saved the show at the same time. But then you have Edge of Destruction, which is such a psychological episode. And also very, even though the TARDIS is gigantic and whatever, it almost kind of is like exploring the space of the TARDIS, exploring, how vast it can be, but also that this machine is manipulative because it is currently causing people to act abnormally. And, you also have Susan, who was kind of, pretty consistent character from the moment you saw her. You knew she was odd, but then when she just goes off her rocker in Edge of Destruction, I feel as though that makes that episode just that much more better. That makes that one, like, again, underrated. And that, I think that's what I would say. I think Edge of Destruction is very underrated. Another Ask Me Anything is, how do you approach analyzing the various aspects of Doctor Who, such as storytelling, character development, and production values on your podcast? Ooh. All right. So I like that. So how I approach doing the podcast, again, I am a massive nerd. I like research. I love reading this and reading that. I totally geek it up. Being a teacher, you always have to have, every so often go have a substitute or whatever. Whenever I have a substitute, I always plan for more that the sub could do than they could actually fit in a day. Why? Because I just want to have all my, bases checked. I also I don't want them to, because they're not, a certified teacher. So I don't want them to have to, try to create something out of nothing. So I always come prepared with, for a sub, more than they can actually do. Same thing with preparing for the show. I always have I have more stuff prepared than we generally get to. And what I like about it is generally, I kind of have an outline of where I want to go. But depending on the discussion, like sometimes the discussion will lead us certain places and we'll just go with that. However, if there's certain things I want to cover, I will kind of like echo back to where where I want the show to go. So that's how I kind of, set up the podcast. Now, when it comes to to me, the way I read this is, how do we review, storytelling, character development, production value. I like being as specific as possible. I hate talking in general terms or, just barely scratching the surface. And maybe that is the teacher in me. I feel as though you need to have, cite exact examples. You need to be able to reference things that occurred, not just, the acting was good, the sound design was great. Like, what part, when, what happened, what, why did the character do this? Or why did you feel as though the character was that interesting? I like to have very specific things. I'm very specific. And I think that also, allows further discussions among all of us. As if we're talking very vague, well, you can't really expand on vague. However, when you talk about a specific situation, you can always expand and say, well, I see it differently. I see it like this. And so that's how I always try to approach every single show. Now, when it comes to, no, never mind. I'm just going to move on. Let's see. What are some of the most interesting fan theories or interpretations you've encountered from your listeners or fellow Doctor Who enthusiasts? I mean, that's an interesting question. Thank you, ChatGPT. Because for me, Liam will come up. I think Liam is the one that comes up with lots of theories on the show, or this is what he would like. I know because I've listened to the past couple of episodes just recently, and he'll come up with that. And I generally just say no, because sometimes I say no just because I want a follow-up. Also, but sometimes I just say no because I'm like, no, not interested. I find, and here's the scary thing, is I think fan theories, especially as of recent New Who, are almost the same thing. Sadly, the 13th Doctor era is more fan theories and interpretations than actual Doctor Who lore. And so, because I think with what the current 13th Doctor era is fan theories have theories to fix things. And I think that is good, because what was happening from the majority was not good. The minority liked it, and good for them. They liked it. But the majority did not like it. And so I was always into fan theories explaining certain things. Next, Ask Me Anything says, how has the show's portrayal of the Doctor's character evolved over time, and what do you think about the direction it's taken in recent seasons? So one of my favorite things, so I said, I actually, Doctor Who's my first love as a science fiction show. Star Trek I absolutely love Star Trek. I am a massive Star Trek fan. I've tried to go to 3 conventions. I've only successfully gone to 1, but I don't want to talk about Star Trek. I mean, again, my background, 20 years ago, I was going into radio talk, sports talk radio specifically. But what I like about that is having an audience, talking, dissecting, peeling apart, and looking at specific moments in time and going in what-if situations, again, kind of like the previous question asked. However, my struggle with, and the main reason why I didn't do sports talk radio for a career, and the main reason why I don't do a Star Trek podcast, is I don't want to talk about Star Trek. I love the classic Star Trek. Next Generation is pretty good. Deep Space Nine, I've probably seen 2 handfuls of episodes. Generally, the Dominion War, I've seen probably about a handful or so of Voyager. I've never seen Star Trek Enterprise at all. And then, of course, I saw the last season of Star Trek Picard. I love Star Trek, but I don't want to talk about it. And the main reason why I don't want to talk about it, and why Doctor Who is actually intriguing and why I like the show, is kind of like that, how that question goes. It says, how has the show's portrayal of the Doctor's character evolved over time? And what you have with Doctor Who, which I really appreciate, is it's generally the same person that has changed physically and also kind of like behavior-wise. However, and again, this is, I think, where the 13th series kind of changes, is because at the heart of them, they are all still the same person. Yes, you can say the 13th Doctor is also the same person, but I feel as though it just went in a different fan fiction-y type of way, in my opinion. And if you disagree, I'd love to hear from you. Please email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet the show, DM the show at Alhambra Podcast. I'd love to hear your disagreements. Again, I think this is a fan show. And so just to go back, why I can't talk about Star Trek is because in the classic series, you have Kirk. I love Kirk. I think he is the best captain in all of Star Trek. Picard is okay. I think in The Next Generation, I think Riker is the better character, in my opinion. Sisko is okay in Deep Space Nine. Janeway is okay. I have no idea who Captain whatever his name is in Enterprise. Pike with I love the classic series so much. I hesitate to watch Strange New World because I don't want it to dump on the thing that I love. And I'm worried. I've heard great things about it, but you have no idea how much I absolutely love Star Trek. And I shade away from that. Shade away from anything that would alter my perspective. Whereas Doctor Who, the character's always the same. You're always talking about the Doctor. Compared to Star Trek, where it's just like, who's better? Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk beats everybody. Period. End of story. That's what I would say. Like, we could have like these debates or whatever. I'm like, no, Captain Kirk beats everybody. He also sleeps with everybody. But he is the better captain out of all of Star Trek. And you can talk to me till your blue cows come home. I don't care. That is my opinion. I can't change it. The only other thing that I would say is the motion picture is horrible. And Star Trek V is not as bad as people say it is. Like, those are my controversial Star Trek things. And I just can't talk about it because I just love the show so much that I hide away from things that could alter or hurt my love. Whereas Doctor Who, I just love to talk about I'm not going to retract that because I've already said it multiple times probably. That's one thing I noticed about podcasting, that I will accidentally say the same thing 2 or 3 times. I need to stop doing that. Anyway, let's see. Another Ask Me Anything. What are your thoughts on diversity and representations within the Doctor Who universe, and how has it evolved over the years? Here's my thoughts on diversity and representation. I don't care. I do not care. Just be a good character, have good, what do I want to say? Have good desires? What? No. I know when I'm post-producing it, it will come into my brain. Have good motivations. There we go. Have good or bad motivations for what or why you're doing it, and be played by somebody who doesn't take me out of the story. If you can do that, I don't care who you are, what gender you are. I don't care what you decide to identify as. What was it? That kid Flash from The Flash says he's a tree. I don't care. Did he do a good job? Don't care. Same thing with the writing crew. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you choose to do on your free time. Here's how writers should be selected for writing. You, on your script, on your title of your script, you put writer 1, 2, 3. Turn in your script. It's read by RTD, Stephen Moffat, whatever, or Chris Chibnall for that matter. And if it is a good idea, contact writer 1, 2, 3, and then have that discuss the whole thing and make it into a story. If it's no good, either contact them or don't. Take the script, throw it away. You are hurting nobody because you don't know the gender, sex, whatever they are, because at the end of the day, the script needs to be good. Who they have physical relationships with is the last thing you should care about. What they like to be called is the last thing that you should be concerned about. You are writing a Doctor Who story, and it, for the fans, and you need to make it so that everybody enjoys it, not just the person who wrote it. If you are writing it just for you, get a Tumblr account and do your fan fiction there. I think a lot of people would have preferred the Chibnall era to have been all on a Tumblr account somewhere as just merely fan fiction, or a Commodore 500 or whatever it's called. Do you have any favorite Doctor Who audio dramas or spin-off media you'd recommend to fans to explore more of the Whoniverse? Now, I know Liam would immediately say Jago and Lightfoot, and I would immediately disagree with that. And the main reason why is Jago and Lightfoot's good, but the first 3 seasons I could do without. Like, I don't think the first three seasons of Jago and Lightfoot have re-listen. I think near the tail end of the 3rd season is okay. In the 4th season of Jago and Lightfoot, it takes off. I would recommend Doctor Who audio drama spin-off being Gallifrey. And I would not say start with season 1. I would say, I want to say start with season 7, post, the episode, I think episode, was it? No, 8, because 7 was the thing that got undone in 8 and never happened, but my money was paid to Big Finish anyway. So yeah. I think Gallifrey from series 8 on is fantastic. That's the one that I would pursue. Let's see. Can you share any memorable experiences or encounters you've had with any Doctor Who? No, because I live in America. How do you balance your love of Doctor Who with your critical analysis on the podcast? Are there any changes in being both fan and critic? Excellent. Ask me anything. Good job, ChatGPT, for that. So here's my approach. So I've already talked about how nerdy and researchy I get. When I decide to review, and you'll notice me say this because I pride myself in being consistent. I think there's nothing more obnoxious than somebody saying, I do this, and then the other time, you tune into the podcast, they do that. I feel as though I'm nothing but consistent. I don't like listening to the trailers. Sometimes in our group chat, a trailer will be posted. I won't watch it. I don't care. What was it? I've watched, do you know how many Blu-ray trailers I've watched? 0. I'm already going to buy the Blu-ray. I don't need to see the trailer to inspire me to buy the Blu-ray. I'll lie and say I've listened to it just so I'd be left alone. Sorry, Liam Legion. I lied. Anyway, but let's see, where is it? How do I balance my love of Doctor Who and critical? So again, I don't listen to trailers and I don't read the synopsis. So oftentimes the first time I'm reading the synopsis is if Liam says, I can't remember the story. What is it about? That is the first time I've ever read the synopsis. I don't read synopsises because I don't want to prejudge an episode. Similar, because the first time I listened to a trailer was the Bloodstone, Moonstone, whatever it was. I think episode 178 or something like that. Moonflesh. There we go. And I thought that was a total mess. I was dreading even listening to it. The trailer sounded dreadful. That was the first trailer that I listened to. Also the last trailer for Big Finish I listened to. And I found the episode really wasn't that bad, but it took a lot of time and focus to extract my hatred for that trailer. And I still am not sure. It might not be that good of a story. And one of these days, maybe in this Ask Me Anything, if I remember, I will explain my my rating system. But I feel as though I gave it a 6.5 or something like that. And was it that? Maybe it was. But it took me a lot because just listening to the trailer, it was like this is a 2. This is going to be so bad. And it wasn't as bad as I initially thought. And so I, on purpose, don't read the synopsis. Don't look at the trailer or listen to the trailer. I mean, I think it is believed by the other co-hosts that I check out who is writing the episode. I do not. Do you know what I do? Is I go in, I try to not look at the cover art. I look at the title because I've generally purchased it because I believe in the series or whatnot, and I hit play. That's all I do. That's why I kind of wish that they would not do the blah, blah, blah of the Daleks or silver something or, where, what is it? Angel something, like stone something, because you know exactly who the villain of the story is. And I don't want to know. I want to kind of just go in and be surprised with the reveal. I wish that Big Finish would do a either incomplete cover and then do a reveal of the actual cover either when you buy it or a week later. They'll do like an update. They're like, hey, update, here's the actual cover for the episode. I would love that because, again, I try to not look at the cover because I want to know as little as possible. I've already bought into the series. So I already am optimistic about what I'm about to listen to. I don't listen to who wrote it. What I like to do is I like to play the game of who wrote this. While I'm out for a walk or while I'm just around the house, just listening to the episode, I will, at one point in time, my brain will just go, I wonder who wrote this. And so I will sit and I will think of what I'm listening to and the writing styles of which I've heard previously. And, it'll be like, okay, so this is what's happening. This is how, this is the voice. Certain voices I can easily figure out it's Simon Guerriere. Other voices, it's just like, okay, this is definitely a John Dorney script. John Dorney and Matt Fitton to me are like super close to each other. It's really hard for me to tell the two apart. Jonathan Morris, if there's any like timey-wimey stuff, that's easily Jonathan Morris. So I love to play who wrote this. And then sometimes if I don't play the game because I either just don't care or I just kind of am just engrossed in the story. The first time I actually see who wrote this is when we're doing the podcast and I'm like, all right, so 6 Doctor box set. We have 3 stories. First is this written by so-and-so. And oftentimes my brain's just like, oh, that's who wrote that. Interesting. So I like to go in as optimistic and with a blank slate as possible. I mean, optimistic because I bought it. If I bought it, I should hope it is good. I mean, why else? Like that's why I've stopped listening to the War Master. I listened to the first one. If you go back to, I can't even remember which episode the first one came out in, but when you go back to listen to it, again, I am nothing but consistent. I said, I hope this is a one and done. I hope they don't do a Dark Eyes and they kind of extend this. Well, little known fact, it sold well. So then we got box set 2 and I wasn't going to listen. I was going to like, fine, I'll listen to it because I think they pre-ordered box set 2, 3, 4 together. And I was not going to jump on the buy all of it box set. So I listened to 2 and I hated myself the entire time. I just hated all of those stories. It was bad. And I do remember I think Liam really liked it because of the ood that was calling or something like that. I hated it. I hated it. So then I was going to be out of the War Master going forward. And then they tease in the 3rd box set that the 8th Doctor is in it. Or maybe, I can't remember if it's the 8th Doctor or the 10th Doctor. And I was like, fine, I'll buy it. I think it's the 8th Doctor because I think in the 4th one is the 10th Doctor. I was like, nope. No, either 4th or 5th. But I was like, nope. Okay. I listened to the first one. I felt as though I suckered myself into the second one. You tricked me into the 3rd one. I am noping out going forward. because this is something I recognize with myself is if I don't believe in something, first off, I don't own it. And this is something I've noticed with me with reading comic books is I have a subscription to Marvel Unlimited and the DC Infinite Universe app. And so for DC, I'm only a month behind of the new releases. For Marvel Unlimited, I'm 3 months behind. But one thing that I have noticed is if I have no interest in buying it, I have no interest in actually reading it, even if it is free and part of my subscription. What I generally do is I read some of the older stuff that, had I been reading comics in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, even 70s and 60s for that matter. If I was reading comics then, that's what I'd be reading. Like that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at some of the new stuff that is a month or 3 months behind because I didn't buy it with my own money because I chose to pass on it. And so I feel as though for me personally, there is investing in, there's part of investing in the series that you're listening to or watching. And that's why I don't like doing pirating stuff, because if I believed in it, I would buy it. And if I don't believe in it, well, why would I want to steal it? Because I don't believe that this is any good. So that's where I kind of lay with my critical analysis. And and going back into the rating system. So here's how I rate things. So again, 10 is perfect, instant classic. 9 is very good, re-listenable, but there is some imperfections. 8 is still really good, but maybe I could listen to it maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now. 7 is I have no regrets in owning this, but it's okay. I'll listen to it eventually. And then 6, and this is like the teacher side of me, because a 10 is like an A, and an A, a 10 and a 9 is an A, an 8 is a B, a 7 is a C, a D is a 6, and then anything from 5 to below is a failure. It just depends on how big of a failure it is. That's how I see my rating system. And one of the things that I do like about it, and I like being able to listen to an old podcast from years ago where I've kind of forgotten my thoughts on the whole thing, listen to me walk through my rating of a Big Finish episode, and to be able to exactly peg today what my thoughts were and my feelings were, however long ago I listened to this. I love, because I can peg exactly what I would, my rating, because not that I remember it, but because I believe in myself and I feel as though I'm predictable enough. And at one point in time, I was getting kind of cutesy with my rating. It was like, oh, well, it took 4 hours of my life, so I'm going to rate it a 4. Like, I feel as though that was unfair to the writer, to Big Finish, also to the listeners, because again, eventually, if this podcast takes off a little bit, we wouldn't mind, monetizing it at some point somehow, but it needs to be worth monetizing. It needs to be worth something that people would be willing to pay for. And I also currently don't think that, like right now, free is a good price. I don't think we have a product right now of the quality that would be paid for. Like but it proved me wrong. You could email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. You can tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. Maybe you're just like, no, we'd love for this to take off, and it is good. So I'd love to hear any controversial opinions regarding that. Are there any classic or modern episodes that have changed your opinion after rewatching or discussing them on the podcast? So I will tell you, I know going into the podcast, I know exactly what my rating is going to be. Now, my rating has changed a couple times on some instances. I can't recall which ones, but they have changed for the better because of things that Legion and Humphrey and Liam have brought up. They will say something and my brain will be like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or they'll bring something, I'm like, yeah, I hated that. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me about that. Boom, I'm going to drop my rating. And generally, I'll make comment about that. But for the most part, I go in knowing exactly how I'm going to rate something. And very rarely has anything really changed my opinion. Because again, what I take away from it is what I take away from the episode or from whatever we're listening to or watching. What Legion or Liam takes away from it is what they take away from it. And I have no control over how they take away from it. If they like it more than me, good for them. If they hate it more than me, good for them. Like generally, I know where I lie, and I'm very confident in my thoughts and opinions. Okay, 2 more. So can you provide some insights into your podcasting process from research, recording, and editing and engaging with the Doctor Who community? So I think I've kind of discussed like the whole process. Recording, I think I've talked about that. Editing, the show as recorded is not the fine-tuned product that you hear. It has warts in it. It is not perfect. I tried to make it as best and flowing as possible. And yeah, engaging with the Doctor Who community, I don't do a good job of that. We sit and, berate, or we don't berate, but we complain about Big Finish's lack of marketing. And who does not do a good marketing thing for the thing that they do? Every single host on the Doctor Who Alhambra podcast. We do not market the podcast. Could our audience be higher? Yes. But part of me believes that word of mouth possibly would be better than actually doing a massive marketing. And, we're not paying like a marketing company, but to put it, to create a Facebook fan page for the podcast, I don't know how that would go. I don't know about constantly doing things on Twitter with the Doctor Who community. I don't know how well that would go over. Because again, I think the hard part about our podcast compared to many other podcasts is I feel as though I think Doctor Who podcasting and YouTube channels are a mixture of 2 minds. One mind is we like everything. We just can't, but we won't say that was as good as it could have been. So trying to, put a ribbon around a turd. Like I feel as though there's one community that refuses to acknowledge the warts that they see. Then there's the other community that loves the show as it was all the way up to the cancellation in 89. And it could never get any better than that. And I refuse to acknowledge anything new is good. And to me, I find our show is a mixture of all 3. We can appreciate the past. We can appreciate the present. We can call out crap on the past. We can call out crap on the present or the future. And I think that in doing so, I would love to say that we are even-handed. And I think Legion has said it a couple times that, our criticism is fair but honest. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel as though the Doctor Who community wants it to be one way or another. You either need the rage community, which, on my YouTube channel, I have a free thing that gives me 3 ideas per day to help, gain viewership or whatever. And generally all 3 of them are negative. And going back to my original thing where I was talking about being, trying to get into radio. One of the main reasons why I didn't want to get into radio is I want to talk about what I want to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is not what my local community wanted to talk about. Well, it's hard for me to be phony. I listened to some of the early episodes, and one of these days, maybe I'll just like wipe them from existence, because not only is the sound quality bad, but I know as I'm listening to some of them, I'm like, I want to say something that isn't positive. But me and Liam were trying to get early access to all the things that we pre-ordered from Big Finish so that we could review it. We were trying to garner, hey, look at us. We're nice. We play well with others. Look at us. Yeah. Hey, 2 thumbs up. And after around Black Dog, when they granted us that release and a couple others, then the following month, they said that they ceased doing that across the board. And then it became like, why? Like for around 30-ish episodes, we tried to suckle up to them and just be like, hey, we like everything too. Like no warts here. And then it just like all came crumbling down. And you could say we weren't bitter. We weren't. I personally didn't take it personally. I just said I tried to be fake to get something. And it worked until it didn't. And now all we have is the honest truth. And for various amounts of podcasts, we weren't being honest. I wasn't being honest. So from that point forward, we moved into a different direction. And yeah, so I think I answered that Ask Me Anything. All right, finally, last Ask Me Anything question. Finally, it's been what has been the most rewarding aspect of hosting the Alhambra podcast and connecting with fellow Doctor Who fans through your show? Excellent question. Thank you, Chat GPT. The few times we've gotten, viewer mail, direct messages or whatever, I think that means the most because in all honesty, like I would do this because it's fun. I enjoy doing this podcast. It is something that I look forward to doing. I love brainstorming. Again, I listen to our podcast. I think it is the best Doctor Who podcast out there. I might be biased in that direction, but I feel as though when you get a positive remark, when you get email, when you get direct messages, it doesn't go to my head. It doesn't make me like feel as though like time worth spent. It's just an honor to be appreciated. That's what it means. To get, fan mail. It just, I appreciate it. Just to be appreciated. I love, again, maybe, and that's another reason why we're like looking to doing some stuff on YouTube is there seems to be a tad bit more interaction on YouTube. However, there is a lot of negativity on YouTube, that's for sure. That's why I think we need to make sure that we have our show a little bit more polished because I could just see the show just getting criticized. I mean, as somebody who has, I'm so proud of myself. I'm just going to, toot my own horn. For somebody who's been YouTubing for a little over a year, I've had the channel for a lot longer, but to have 212 subscribers, and getting some pretty good interaction from time to time, I feel as though I'm doing something right. But I also get some negativity stuff because, I made a mistake. There's certain people that you're not allowed to say that you enjoyed their comic book because the comic community says that this person's not nice because they're mean on Twitter. And it's just like, dude, just take a step back. Like, it's okay. Like, we can all like and dislike the same things. So, yeah. Making friends with Legion, because I met him through Liam. Making friends with Legion has been one of the brightest aspects of doing the podcast. Getting fan interaction and just, just fan interaction. You can tell us that we're crap, but you know what? You listened and you heard the Alhambra audio at gmail.com. That is ALHAMBRA audio at gmail.com. Just being able to hear that or like looking at the show notes or whatever on the whatever platform that you're listening to, I think, we got something. But yeah, those are the two most rewarding things about the podcast is fan interaction and adding to my circle of friends. So yeah. That being said, I think I am going to conclude this episode of the Dr. Alhambra podcast. I got really mushy at the very end of that. I hope it didn't make anybody vomit. If you would like to ask us anything or whatnot, or have any faux YouTube discussion chat sent our way revolving around the greatest Doctor Who episode of all time, which is obviously Love and Monsters, please email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast is not affiliated with Big Finish or Doctor Who or the BBC. No infringement is intended. If you'd like to check out our website, please don't. Whatever. I was going to do... Yeah, that's it. All right. Thanks again for watching. And until next time, we will see you in time.